There's a whole wide range of measures that are affected by the issue of the Assembly not being...
They're talking about domestic abuse.
With her approval, but the only
it's the draft
answer I can
domestic
again urge those
abuse bill.
Difference in Northern Ireland to please get back round the table and start talking to each other.
While I've been listening to it, they haven't mentioned once about what is the cause of domestic abuse. And to me, that, I mean, they've been at it, I don't know what time it is.
Charities have said that this is giving a hand to abusers by not having automatically split payments. So because the Honourable Member on the SNP front bench didn't quite get a straight
nothing works in this house. There you go.
Recognise this and meet with her colleagues in the DWP to urge that universal...
So it's 2:37ish now. So you said 2.
We're not talking about financial abuse, we talk about economic abuse, because we appreciate that abuse can take many forms. For example, preventing access to food cupboards in the kitchen, taking her mobile phone away, she has, it's restricted who she can contact, even hiding the car keys so that she can't get to...
No, it's 1:28, so they've been on for about 3/4 of an hour.
As to the point about income,
about domestic abuse, and they haven't mentioned the cause, or one of the causes of domestic abuse. Well, probably all of the causes of domestic abuse, and that's stress. These people that go around beating up the wives and sexually abusing the wives are stressed out of their heads. They're insane on stress. They want to cause somebody else in the family blood. They want to cause that person pain and harm because they're stressed out. They've got to take it out on somebody. And it's as plain as simple as that. But then you have to ask the question, what is the main cause of stress? Well, the main cause of stress is the system in which we have to exist in, and that's a neo sort of liberal dictatorship, global dictatorship, not just a national dictatorship. So, the main cause of stress is the monetary economic system. People that are stressed out in the lower echelons of society get stressed out because they're not getting enough money to live a happy life on. How can you live a happy life when you haven't got enough money to pay for a happy life?
To empower the Minister and Secretary of State the victims of domestic violence and of women in general.
And they're talking about human rights and domestic abuse. You have to look at the cause of domestic abuse, not just domestic abuse on its own. You can't put sanctions on domestic abuse when it's the system that they're managing, these politicians are managing, is the cause of domestic abuse.
Judgment is delivered, of course, we will be looking at it.
And they won't acknowledge that, because even though it's a fact
range of
that this is what's happening in the society, this life that we're living.
Again, I just remind the House.
They won't acknowledge that fact, because that would mean we have to change the system.
Is as a result of domestic.
And they haven't got a clue how to change the system, that they're trapped in themselves. These politicians are paying the wages of the richest 25 people in the world. No, 26, sorry. But that's not quibble about little numbers. So there's 26 people that the whole of the globe is paying to live a life of luxury. So these things you need to start asking yourself, really. How can you have a stress-free world when the system that you're living in is designed, functions on the fact that you have to be stressed out. You have to worry about everything. You have to worry where the next crumb of bread is coming from.
Will she consider doing something similar for all judges?
Some people are, in that condition, aren't they? Yeah, they're just a few thousand, but they shouldn't have to be like that. The government even admits that they shouldn't have to be like it.
Pointing to the fact that this draft bill, important though it is not the only action that the government is taking.
I haven't got a clue what's in this draft bill
there are some
that's going to minimise domestic abuse.
That is a crucial part of our package, not just of...
I hazard a guess that all of the solutions that they're offering to minimise domestic abuse are the tools of the system.
Receive training on this, but we very much keep it under
because it's the system that causes the problem in the first place.
Looking at
this domestic abuse problem, which is caused by stress on the whole, and the stress being taken out on the family and the blood of the person that's taking it out on them. This stress caused by the system.
With, as I say, my counterparts in the Department for Work and Pension,
they're not going to acknowledge it. They're not going to acknowledge that it's their system, their way of managing the global population, and in our case here, the national population.
Really making a difference in our communities, which is why it's really disappointing that here now at the third, well, not even at the first term,
they're just totally oblivious to the actual cause, really, I think, of
not put things in this bill, such as migration, such as welfare, and therefore allowing the
domestic abuse
scope for just England and Wales. Was that a decision based on the best interests of women in the United States?
I'm into 8 minutes, and I think you deserve at least 15 minutes of this taxpayers' waste of money. If they don't acknowledge the causes, they're not doing their jobs properly.
Which was launched last year.
They're not managing
I wouldn't want honourable members to leave this chamber thinking there's
the system, I suppose, a new system for the benefit of the whole of the population, because they have to acknowledge stress as the cause of domestic abuse, and stress can be at any level. It can be at their level too. I think I've heard, although I'm not 100% sure, of an MP that's been accused of domestic abuse. And we know that some MPs are abusers. They're dominant people that want to control control
when I was prosecuting
people.
in the criminal courts 15 years ago.
And that's abuse, let alone domestic abuse.
But also
I mean, all abuse is abuse, end of story.
domestic abuse.
Why categorise it? And you've got to ask, well, what's that abuse? What's ordinary abuse caused by? You know, abuse against people that don't know each other.
Said that there was no devolved institutions in Ireland in the 1860s.
What that is
in 1840 under Daniel O'Connell, the first Home Rule movement, and by 1861 the second movement was well underway, leading to devolution.
It's causing people to be violent with each other.
In Northern Ireland, and it's unfortunate that that's been completed. Does the Minister agree that the confusion of we have this strange arrangement?
Still no mention of stress.
Some members talk about protecting absolute
and what stress is caused by it.
Agreement when it comes to some matters that we discuss, namely Europe. But then when we move to domestic,
and what they're worried about there is because the Irish and the Scottish can choose whether to adopt this bill or not. Really, they can make their own minds up about how much domestic abuse can be allowed.
For his history lesson on Ireland, Northern Ireland.
I mean, if you look back in history, domestic abuse was rife.
With devolved matters, we can't pick and choose, and it is.
They just don't acknowledge that.
Reminds us all, if we need reminding, as to the particular sensitivity.
Yeah, Anthony's left us up.
And how we've reached where we are today. It's broad history.
You do one shot.
But of course, we're hoping that those who can get around the table do so that we can sort these matters.
No worries.
Go for it, man.
Yeah.
Andy Martin. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Was
Right.
Bill vetted by the Cabinet Office in relation?
It's all right. My son's here, and he's got a bad bunion. Poor mate. You know you're playing today.
Yeah. Who are you talking to?
I'm recording something. I'm recording something about domestic abuse.
Oh God, don't start me on that.
Well, what would you actually say domestic abuse is caused by? What's the cause of domestic abuse?
The guidelines that the government give us, the constantly trying to hit the target that we want to get to, but we'll never get to because of financial means.
Well, yeah, financial means.
You've obviously got your bastards who just like knocking their women about and fucking causing domestic problems. But a lot of 50% of domestic problems in England is because we're trying to get to a certain level, but we're never going to achieve it. We haven't got the means. The benefit system keeps us poor.
In other words, we haven't got the funding.
Yeah, it's designed to keep us poor. It's designed to look like it's keeping our head above the water and giving us an opportunity to progress. But you really don't. You keep
the rules of evil
low. You can struggle for 5 to 10 years, but still remain in the same place. But over them 5 and 10 years, the government will say, "Oh, we've got better. 5 years ago, we're better than we were now. 10 years ago, we're better than we were now." But we who live it, we know that's not true. You know what I mean? Because we have to live it. You know what I mean? So that would be my answer to that, and through the pain,
such designation. It is the
one more
normal
touch on the end
practice.
there, mate.
So you're saying really that money is the cause of most domestic abuse?
Yeah,
And that
and lack of.
is formed.
Yeah.
And their lack of
That is something
resources.
response.
Now, if I went back to the beginning of this,
It is, of course, a draft.
it would prove the fact that you, now, and I think exactly on the same line.
Yeah.
And we haven't known each other for 40 years.
No, for fuck.
That this
So everything you've learned about the system that you're living in, you've learnt on your own.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, through living
And
and
I've
being
had-
affected by it.
And I've personally had nothing to do with that, really, whatever.
Oh no. What you doing? No way. No.
a living testimony
So
to the truth.
getting
keep us down.
It is
That's what I meant.
unimaginable.
yeah.
Will not be the
It's designed that way to keep us down and to keep them down. But they don't realise that.
And obviously, I should just say,
because they're living in the lap of luxury, aren't they? They're getting all the money that they need to keep their families happy.
that I granted an urgent question.
But we,
I think it's the 500.
us lowly, peasants, aren't living in the lap of luxury. We're having to put thick woolies on in the winter.
The response of a minister
But anyway,
today.
with that, I'm going.
Mr. Gregory Campbell.
Go.